Welcome into this edition of Marvel Friends After Work, a podcast that talks about anything and everything related to the MCU. I'm Casey.
And I'm Joel.
And today we're going to be hunkering down on Loki Season 2. It's how many days away? I forgot to count. I was going to count. It's next
6
Thursday.
days.
6 days? 6 days and counting.
Yep.
So, this whole episode, I want to focus on what our expectations are and what we're hoping to see. But where did we leave off Season 1? Where did the last episode of Season 1, where did it leave us off?
So it's the last big reveals. We found out that the TVA is all employed by previous variants. Obviously, we found out that the Timekeepers were lizard robots and that He Who Remains was behind it all. And then Sylvie kills He Who Remains, doing something in a timeline that we don't really know what's going on. And then we see Loki is now in a place where Conqueror Kang, looks like Conqueror Kang, is a statue in the middle of the TVA, instead of the 3 Timekeeper people that we were used to.
Which led me to one of my first questions I have for Season 2. Would have been, if the TVA existed to keep the multiverse in check, but if the multiverse is loose now, is there any, point to the TVA, or does it exist technically anymore? Because what job would they have?
Well, I would love to know which part they're taking that from. So if it's like going back in time to just being a Kang ruling it, then the TVA would be like the perfect place for him to be able to send his soldiers to other timelines to mess with them, to battle with them, to put himself as ruler there, and then come back. He can really rule over timelines.
They gave that impression in the last episode, because right there at the end, before Loki runs in to B-15, Hunter B-15, and Mobius, which they were different variants of them, I think. But he said something like, Mobius said, "Are you sure that's what we should do?" And Hunter B-15's like, "Well, that's what he told us to do. That's what he wants." So it kind of gave the impression that somebody was in charge of the TVA still.
So I'm trying to figure out, and I think everybody is kind of on the same page. Did Loki go back in time, and this is a TVA before the Timekeepers were the robots that he put into place? Or is this just like an alternate reality where he wasn't the nice, tie everything in one bow Timekeeper?
See, that was one of the bigger questions, I guess, because I didn't think there was variants of the TVA. The TVA is outside of time, so there's one of them. For them not to recognize Loki was weird, but it would kind of make sense if when she killed He Who Remains that the TVA, that present TVA, no longer existed, and it just went back to what it was before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Did they send Loki back to, still same TVA, but did they send him back to way before He Who Remains put the facade of the 3 robot Timekeepers up there? Did he rule it as one ruler at one point before the Timekeepers were put into place? Or did this just change everything to where some kind of a loop went back? Or maybe the whole thing's a loop, and he's just at the beginning of the loop. I like that. That's my favorite. I hope that this is all one big time loop. Yeah. I know it's all very confusing, right?
It is so confusing. It leads me to the question, I feel like I've asked this 1,000 times, and you've explained it at least that many times. Is the world that we saw in Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness, the one we spent the most time in, 838, was Kang controlling that with this TVA too? Or are they separate universes, and He Who Remains was just controlling the 616?
So I think, so after the events of Loki Season 1, I think the timelines open to fracturing to where all those other timelines, other universes exist, or at least can contact each other. So before he kept it into one sacred timeline, which either meant that it's one singular sacred timeline or it's a bunch of timelines where they all go down this determined path and they don't have a chance to reach out to these other universes or whatever you want. I mean, maybe it's timelines, maybe it's other universes. They haven't really said that, right? They haven't determined if a different timeline is the same thing as another universe, or if it's just there's just
going to be
quantum
one
level
of the
ridiculous
top things then I want answered in this show is how it works. Universes versus timelines and how they correlate. That's what I want answered more than anything else. And I think a lot of people in general would like that answer. I feel like a lot of people who are on the fence with Marvel might sway back toward Marvel if that type of question was answered and the rules were like really clear how it works.
Yeah, because in Endgame they kind of messed with those rules. They made a time loop, right? So they go back in time, get the stones, bring them back, defeat Thanos, and then go back and put them in their place. And if all went completely according to plan, that's a time loop. So everything's all good. Everything was already predetermined to happen. That's the way things were supposed to run. But then there's people that are like, well, you left Steve Rogers back there. So was he hiding in the background all along? And that's just our MCU? Or did him going back split off a whole nother universe, a whole nother timeline that maybe became a different universe?
See, replacing the stones is different than Steve staying as far as like if it would put a wrinkle in the timeline. Because if you took the stones out and you put him back, it would almost be like the TVA when they would reset something, put like their reset charges. I feel like they would have like the same concept. But if Steve actually stayed and lived a life, when he left, it wouldn't have reset anything.
Yeah. If he would have just like dropped the stone back to the exact spot where it was and just poofed back to the future, everything would have been hunky-dory. But if he stayed around and lived his life out with Peggy, which it seems like he did, so that is either
that or
our
that
same
type of
universe,
travel.
or that made a branching timeline that maybe turned into the 838 or, any of the other possible universes. Because now, apparently, since Sylvie killed He Who Remains, it's kind of unprotected, wide open. Yeah. And it's hard to determine, like, what point was the TVA shut down, right? Or does it even matter? Because TVA is not functioning as it was anyway, so at any point during any of these timelines, everything still happened. So
I was gonna
maybe
say,
there's an old Sylvie, maybe there's an alligator Loki, maybe there's a kid Loki ruling Asgard,
Fair enough.
Those are all crazy things that now are possible.
I was about to say, well, it's possible when the Avengers went back in time that He Who Remains was already killed during that time because the TVA is outside of time, so that could have already happened, and the other king let it happen. But He Who Remains only died because Loki and Sylvie got to him, and Loki only escaped because the Avengers went back in time.
Right. And they even said, I forgot who actually said it. Maybe it was Ravana that said those were all supposed to happen. That was all predetermined. The Avengers going back in time was all predetermined. Which, I mean, that's probably the question that I want most. So, when He Who Remains was in charge, was everything just on a predetermined path, like going to happen, them going back in time, all determined to happen? And now, since they killed him, is it no longer predetermined? Now is it free will? Like Ravana says, I'm going back in search of free will. Where are you going? In search of free will.
Well, that would work with what Sylvie says in the trailer. It's like we'd be playing gods. I mean, she kind of that line gave me the impression that they are going to have to be making the choices that He Remain made. She didn't want to do that choice earlier, and I think that's what they're going to be faced with is maybe having to take on that role. So that would make sense if they now do have free will and it's going chaotic, and they might have to step in and take that away.
So just before we started recording, I watched the Legends episodes. So there's 2 new Legends, Marvel Legends episodes. One's about the TVA, and the other is about variants. And the
I didn't
TVA
watch
one,
the Legends.
yeah, I mean they just popped up today, so it's brand new. But the TVA one was super interesting because they go back with that Miss Minutes talking about long ago, blah blah blah. The timekeepers made this path, but they blend in some of the video from Quantumania with Kang telling his version of the story. So it's
Mm.
really cool to see the two videos kind of overlapping.
Did you find
So
any like spoilers in either of the Legends?
there's no spoilers. No, it's just a recap, but it's Miss Minutes version telling the story, and they use the video from Quantumania. So instead of it all being that like cartoon version of it, you're seeing Kang's visuals of all these warring timelines.
That would be
Yeah.
cool. Did they explain anything more to help understand it, or is it just basically the same information?
They didn't. They did. There's one quote by Loki that says, "Remove the dictator, and what fills the void?" Like talking to Sylvie when she's about to kill He Who Remains. He says,
Mm.
"Remove the dictator, and what fills the void?" And then shortly after that, he says, "What if by killing him we create something much worse?" Because that's what he was saying. He's like, "You kill me,
Right.
you're gonna see the rest of my variants." Yeah. So thought that was super interesting. It's like,
I want to give those a watch then. I was a little hesitant to watch that type of stuff because sometimes in the past, Marvel released like a Legends or an Assembled, and then they realized they shouldn't have, and they take it off because people are like, "There's spoilers." I'm like, I don't want to be spoiled. Not for this.
nope, no spoilers. Definitely is making it more interesting, though. Yeah.
How do you think this series is going to end in terms of? Do you think it's gonna be like on a cliffhanger? Do you think it's gonna end kind of with like a death into like a cliffhanger? Is it gonna be did they lose scenario? Because I find it hard to believe that Loki's story will wrap up in 6
Right.
episodes. So how do you see
Uh,
this like ending?
I think it's gonna end in them. Like, hopefully, this is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that they'll end in this kind of tying everything into the incursions threat. So they'll have done their part to patch the timeline, but realize that they need to go into these other universes or timelines or whatever and try and like gather people to fight against the incursions. That's what I'm hoping. I think that'd be great. Because they're not going to just fix everything,
Right.
make
I was
everything hunky
hoping
dory.
that would suck. That'd be really boring.
Yeah.
It'd be weird that they're like, "Oh, everything's fixed," and you're like, "And Secret Wars is what then?" Just still happens.
Mhm.
I was curious if they do the incursions and how they're gonna fit in, and if they're gonna use them early on, or if it's gonna be kind of like the finale type issue.
I mean, I think all the incursions are happening because of Sylvie killing He Who Remains. So I think that's messing with all the time. But I don't think they know that yet. So that's what I'm saying. I think at the end there will be a reveal, like the reason why all this stuff is going crazy is because incursions exist. But I don't know who's going to tell him that. I mean, is Kang going to tell him that? That's a real question I would like to know. Who is Victor Timely? Like, is Victor Timely the same Kang from Quantumania? And they pushed him into his time machine.
Right.
Did he just end back in whatever the 1800s or whenever he's supposed to be there? Or is this an earlier version of him? An earlier version of all the Kangs? That's
I guess I was assuming the Victor Timely was just gonna be an earlier version of either King the Conqueror or He Who Remains. One of those two.
I mean, it could be the same, right? If they're both variants of each other.
Technically, they're all the same person, but if we're breaking it down,
that's what I'm saying. So, is this the earlier person of them, or is this Kang, who's already been Kang the Conqueror from Quantumania, getting thrown back in time, and now he's got a chance to reestablish himself, make himself powerful in the 1800s, you know.
Because that was one of my other thoughts is Loki 2 gonna start off where Ant-Man left off with Kang? And if the Kang that went into his own time machine or whatever there at the end, if that is Victor Timely, that would kind of make sense. If the show starts with Victor Timely and that's the Kang, if they want to tie in the Ant-Man ending, I don't know, that kind of feels like that all works together.
That'd be super cool, right? Like him as a very intelligent guy that just got thrown back in a time. Maybe he doesn't remember who he is. I think that'd be really fun. Like
That
he's
would
got
be
amnesia.
cool.
He's just very intelligent, can work with machines really, really well, but he doesn't know who he is. So then if that guy encounters another Kang later, that Kang can tell him who he is or who he was.
Like, you're wasting your talents here. We could destroy
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, in the comics, there definitely is a point where an older Kang goes back to a younger Kang and explains who he's going to become. So this would be kind of the same thing, but just,
I kind of felt like Victor
remembering
Timely
who
already
you
looked.
were.
Yeah, I was gonna say Victor Timely already looked older. To see an
Right.
older
Yeah,
Kang have to
He
come
would
back,
just
it's
be-
like grandfather Kang.
Yeah, he'd just be reminding him of like things that he did that he forgot about. Like you didn't know that you were a murderer, but surprise, you were kind of a bad dude. And
I feel
then
like
maybe he wants to be a good guy because of that. Maybe he.
Wasn't there a Kang variant in the comics somewhere that wanted to be a good like variant?
Mhm.
He saw what he was going to be in the future and he wanted to change it, but then he figured out he
Right.
couldn't.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. So the older Kang goes back to the younger Kang, or Nathaniel Richards, because he's not Kang yet. He's not the Conqueror. Goes back to Nathaniel Richards, tells him, this is who you're going to become. You're going to rule over worlds. It's going to be great. And he's like, no, that kind of sounds terrible. I don't think I want to be that terrible person. And then instead he becomes Iron Lad and works with the New Avengers and helps them defeat Kang, or, at one point defeat Kang. I don't know if they're the ones that get rid of him completely, but they beat him in a battle, right? So
Mhm.
I think that'd be super interesting. It's just, instead of it being young Kang, it just Kang with amnesia.
They
That'd be
changed it
real
just
fun.
a little bit. It could still work.
Yeah.
I like the theory based off King obviously not dying at the end of Ant-Man, and we all know it. And then the post-credit scene, it'd kind of be nice if they transitioned right into that at the beginning of Loki. Just 1, 2, 3. Instead of getting us a post-credit scene that they don't do anything with. Kind of like with Shang-Chi and a lot of the other movies recently, we get post-credit scenes and they still haven't paid off, where this would pay off like immediately. And that would be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with them leaving another cliffhanger post-credit scene as long as they can explain what's going on before the end, right? Like don't leave another loose thread before you leave another loose thread post-credit scene. Tell me what's going on. Are there multiple universes? Does everybody know about this? Yeah. Are there time loops? Is there predeterminism? Is there free will? Is time a loop? These are things I want to know.
Here's a question I have. If they ever fix the timeline, if like the TVA gets back on track and they fix the timeline, can Loki and Sylvie live in the same one? Or do you think they'll always live outside of time?
I mean, He Who Remains definitely said, I mean, it could have been a false thing, false promise, but he said that he could set it up
Not
for them
trusting
both to
Kang?
rule.
I know.
Yeah. Well, He Who Remains, he's
He
a
seemed
nice
nice.
king. He's a nice king. Yeah. He's just sitting there eating his apple. Yeah. Seems like a nice guy.
Just
I don't know. I
ruin
think
like Sylvie's life.
realistically, having two of the same variants in one place, I don't know. I don't know quantum physics enough to be able to assure that
They
that's
could
going to
just live at the
destabilize
TVA.
reality, but I mean, it seems like the science wouldn't work out there, right? Like you've got this version of yourself and this version of yourself from different timelines being that close to each other. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of sci-fi where like if you were to touch an earlier version of yourself, you both just blink out of existence. It's like
What's that
loosely
from?
based on quantum physics. I don't know. Doctor Who. I want to say it's from Doctor Who,
Oh, I
which
haven't seen Doctor Who.
again, Doctor Who is worth
Surprise!
it. Doctor Who. It's not a movie. It's a whole series, and it's a very long series. But you don't have to watch the old ones. You can watch it starting from like '97. And if you make it through the first season and you don't like it, then I will apologize and send you cookies or whatever, because that is
I'll look into it and add it to my long
so
list.
good. I enjoyed it so much. But it is like goofy sci-fi, so I think if you like Marvel, I think it'll play hand in hand.
I like
with
Marvel.
that.
I'm getting more into sci-fi slowly. As a child, I despised anything sci-fi, even close to it. So as I've gotten older, I've like tried the baby stuff that people are like Stranger Things, Harry Potter, like those type of shows. I was like giving them a try. Now I'm like into my adult years. I'm like, this stuff is great, but I haven't tried it before. So I'll give Doctor
No,
Who a look at and see.
I think it's definitely a step above those two that you just mentioned. Yeah,
Well, it's probably more
for
aimed
sure.
for adults per se.
No,
Oh, really?
no.
Okay.
Doctor Who was made like for when it first came out, it was made more for children. Then they
Hmm.
rebooted it, and it was more for like parents to be able to show their kids. So it's still fun sci-fi, but
That
it
sounds
makes
fun.
sense for the parents with the science, where the kids are probably not overthinking things too much. So yeah,
I like it.
I
I'm
think
gonna
it's good.
check it out.
Yeah,
Tell me
it's very fun.
something, at least one thing you'd like to see done this season. Whether you think it's going to or not, something you think would be fun or cool or you'd like to really see them do.
Hmm. I think all right. I want to see more of Kang. Obviously, I want to see Victor Timely, and I want to see him. If he's not going to be the benevolent guy, I want him to make like an army of robots, thinking that he's like helping humanity,
Hmm.
right? Because when has that ever backfired in any
Never. Age
sci-fi
of Ultron,
movie?
never.
Yeah,
So,
Doctor Who, well, yeah, all the time.
what would he? What is he gonna do with the robots per se? Like,
Have
is he like a
them.
Tony Stark or like the
Yeah, yeah.
TVA
They're
robots?
gonna help. They're gonna help humanity by serving humanity.
Oh, like the Eternals.
Yeah, not quite those, not that level of robots. We're talking more like what's the Jetsons
Oh,
servant?
I know.
Betty?
Yeah, I
Is
know.
it Betty? No.
It's either Betsy or Betty, I think.
Anyways, you know
It's
what I'm
been
talking
so
about.
long. Yeah.
They're servant robot, like that kind of just a helper, just bringing the food from the oven, cooking the food, bringing the food to you. I think it'd be fun to see that, and then probably see it backfire. Because I don't know what Miss Minutes is doing there, right? Maybe Miss
Miss Minutes
Minutes is
looks
going to be the.
horrifying.
Maybe she's the ghost of the machine, and maybe she's going to possess Ultron style all those robots. You know?
I'm gonna call the shot now because it's gonna happen. She's the real villain of Secret Wars. Like, she's gonna be the top villain over Galactica, all of it.
Of
Like,
all of
she's
Secret
actually.
Wars,
Yep, it's gonna be
I want to
Miss
know if she
Minutes.
can
That's what it's gonna be.
actually manipulate anything, right? Like she can do her ghostly form, but I wonder if she can actually like if she would have slapped Loki. Like,
Could
what
you
if he
feel it?
slapped at her? If she would have just went, yeah, if he would have went, ah, you know,
I was trying to think. No, she didn't touch. Didn't he smack her or something?
she hops around on the desk while he's swinging at her, but he's touching stuff. She doesn't seem to be harmed,
Hmm.
but I wonder,
Good
yeah,
point.
if she was just like flicked him in the forehead, if he'd have been like, oh, you know, because she's definitely terrifying at the end when she popped
Is
up. Yeah,
is Miss Minutes in the comics?
not that I know of. No, at least she wasn't called Miss Minutes. I don't think.
Okay, then my
That's a good
theory is
question.
totally busted. There's no way the top villain ever in the world would be Miss Minutes if she's not in the comics. Which I was
No,
joking with
I
my
don't think
theory
she's gonna be
anyway.
like Doctor Doom level or anything. That's a good question. I actually don't know that Miss Minutes is in the comics.
Most of the characters are at least resembled from something or someone from the comic.
Yeah, and Victor Timely, like they even have posters, the propaganda posters that they have throughout Loki season 1. They're like his photo with the mustache and everything.
Miss
Um,
Minutes is Kang. He found a way to put his brain into a digital thing so
and
he could actually live forever.
maybe, I
That
kind of
type
like
of
that. Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done with that theory, but that's the basic of it.
I can see what you're saying though. Like she, you know, how do you store all of the memory of time? You can't keep it all in your brain. You'd go crazy.
Right.
So you offload it into a little hard drive, more or less, and then you can access that hard drive. Yeah,
I
like
like
that.
this.
Yeah.
I like this. I'm calling it. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna be like the
Sh-
only person that came up with
She's
this.
like
Yes.
the AI of multiple timelines that have happened so far. That'd be fun.
I like this. This works.
So maybe she's the one who explains that there's all these incursions happening and explains what an incursion is. Maybe she has
I
to
can
explain
see
this.
her like. There's gonna be like a video to explain incursions. She's gonna go, "Hey y'all,
I love it.
incursions are
Love
when
it.
two of your lovely planets kind of combine, and
one
everyone
of
and
them
everything
blows up."
dies."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can see this be like a nice little intro video.
And maybe
Good
like
way.
Vision has to tap in to access her memories, you know? I don't know.
Be a good way to work it in.
Yeah.
I like this theory. I didn't go in with anything with Miss Minutes on my notes thinking about Loki 2 today. And
She's
that's a good
she's
theory.
gonna be there and she's gonna be big at some point. That's all we know from trailers.
She's supposed to be in Deadpool 3.
She's rumored to be in Deadpool 3. I don't even know. I guess they're allowed to do reshoots now. Now that they have like started to settle the writers'
The writers' actor strike thing.
Yes.
The writer's strike, I heard they made an agreement of some sort, but they're still working on the details for it. And the actor strike, I heard, is not quite over yet.
Okay.
Technically, it started later, so.
Well, as a writer, he's a writer and an actor, but as a writer, I think he's allowed to just rewrite the scripts.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice.
Is Deadpool 3 on the list of reshoots? Because I knew Captain America 4 was.
I think it got pushed back for sure. Didn't we talk about that last week? That it got pushed back?
Deadpool 3 got moved back?
I think so. It was supposed to be May. Yeah.
When's it supposed to come?
Like late 2024. Yeah.
Because next year it was supposed to be Thunderbolts, Deadpool 3, and Captain America 4, right?
Deadpool 3 was supposed to be in like May or June, right?
May, I think.
Yeah, I think they pushed that to like the end of the year. But I don't know. There's no
suck.
Yeah, there's no confirmation on that. That's just like the rumors.
Lovely Marvel rumors,
to.
The mail that goes forever. Something I would like to see would be Loki to go back and visit 616 in present time right now. And see somebody like he knows. Because everyone thinks he's dead and gone anyway. It'd just be interesting for him to go back and see what life is like maybe without him there. Or I just think it would be fun for him to go back and see what he is now. It would be kind of cool.
That'd be tough.
It'd be like a really emotional, maybe impactful side of Loki to be shown too, because it'd just be weird.
So maybe
I'm not
present.
supposed to be here.
Maybe not present day, but I like the idea of him being like a fly on the wall for all of Endgame. That everything kind of ended up better because he died, and it's kind of morbid to think about. But like his dying helped Thor become better, Heimdall sent Hulk to warn everybody. His sacrifice actually meant something. I think that'd be really cool. So they didn't touch on that in the
Did
first
it
one,
though?
right? Yeah, if
I
he
felt
wouldn't
like
have attempted to kill Thanos, I don't think there would have been the time for Hulk to come in. Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe that did happen after. We
Like
have a Hulk. Hulk comes out. They have the fight. Heimdall sends Hulk. Oh, and then he tries to stab him.
it's just like the stabbing was just it's very disappointing. It seemed like such a weak thing to do. It's like you couldn't have won that, and it didn't come as any surprise. Like everyone in the theater could sit there like, oh, he's gonna stab him. Like his whole like
Magic
Loki was
knives,
showing Thanos, but Loki was showing Thanos like he was bowing to him like my lord or whatever, getting ready like to stab him, and you're like, it was so obvious. It was like this is just the scene was a little weird to me. Maybe it's just how it was shot. I don't know.
I think it's just because Loki is a drama queen, right? Like anybody else would have been like, yes, your savior, and immediately went up, and he went, oh.
Yeah, maybe it was too drawn out.
And then he
somehow.
says something about the sun will rise on us again, and then he goes for the
Yeah. I don't know.
Too
The
slow.
scene was a little weird to me. The scene maybe felt a little stretched out. I don't know. I was actually Infinity
They had
War
to give
was
him a
my
send-off.
first movie I saw in theaters. And I hadn't seen Loki in a movie yet because I was just getting into Marvel. My younger sister had researched all of it and she told me all of it. So I was so excited to see Loki on screen and he died in 5 minutes. I was like, this movie is going to suck. It was my first thoughts after he died, honestly. But I did like the rest of the movie. It was good.
It was good. And how'd you like Ragnarok?
Love Ragnarok. It's in my top like 5 movies at least.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
But you didn't see that one in theaters then. That was
No. Yeah, I saw.
So wait, Endgame or Infinity War was your first? Endgame was your first in theaters movie?
Yeah, Infinity War was my first in theaters.
Okay.
I wasn't into Marvel before that.
Gotcha.
And now
So
I never
that
shut
got
up
you
about
into
it.
Nice.
Obviously. To be on a podcast
That's
for
an interesting one. Yeah, it's an interesting one to start on.
I think Nick
Like
said
the
he was about the
finale of the
same way.
season.
I think Nick and I were about the same way. We both kind of came in at Infinity War, and you had to like do all your research to catch up, which not everybody's willing to do. But
I think he had already watched some of the Spider-Mans and stuff, but yeah.
I had watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, not in theaters, but I had watched that before coming in. But otherwise, Infinity War was like the first.
Yeah,
film.
I don't think he realized that it all tied together. And then once you figure out that, you're like, oh, this is fun. We can go watch all these movies that culminate in one story. Oh yeah, I think everybody was kind of on board with that. That's why it's so much fun. Which is why I can't wait for them to tie. What we already did phase 4. We're going into phase 5 now. I can't wait for some of this to tie everything back together. Like, I think Loki season 2 is actually phase 5, right? Or
Ant-Man 3, Quantumania was the beginning of phase 5.
Was the beginning of phase 5.
So we've had
Okay,
Ant-Man,
yeah.
Wakanda Forever.
See, I thought Wakanda
She-Hulk, Miss
Forever
Marvel,
was the
Love and Thunder.
end of phase 4.
Oh, wait a minute. Which came out first? Because,
Wakanda
oh my
Forever.
gosh. Yeah, Quantumania came out this year. I was
Yeah.
thinking it came out last year. So yeah,
No, Wakanda
Quantumania
Forever.
was the first of phase 5. So we've had 2 properties drop. 3 properties drop. Am I missing one? No, we had 3 properties drop for phase 5 so far.
That's it. And then we had a writer's strike, and we've literally had nothing but casting rumors. False casting
Lots of
rumors.
casting rumors. Good casting rumors. We came up with a good list. I'm actually disappointed if some of my Fantastic Four doesn't like get kind of picked. I
There's
actually
even
came
a-
up with
a
another
new
one.
rumor. Oh, go ahead.
I thought Jennifer Lawrence would be a really good person for actually Sue Storm. I think she'd be really funny in the role. But I know
Okay.
Sue Storm's supposed to be somewhat serious, so I don't know if
Yeah, I
she
think
could pull it off well.
I think she'd maybe be a little young. I guess she's my age, so maybe not. Ugh, yeah,
I
my
kind of felt
age.
like in Fantastic Four, the one that came out in 2014 or 16, the second one that came out. I thought the Sue Storm seemed young in that one to me too. So I never pictured Sue Storm as very old.
I don't remember who played that one. That was one with the same. I'm
There's one
terrible
with
about
Michael
actors'
Jordan.
names.
There's one with
Yes.
Michael
Okay.
Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael
Yes.
B. Jordan. Yeah, not Michael
You have to say the
Jordan.
B because Michael Jordan is the Air
Yeah,
Jordan.
that's two
Yeah.
different guys.
Got to make the distinction there. I'm so bad about the actors' names though that I have to be like he was the guy in blah 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 or I still can't think of who that actress would have been. Yeah.
I know what she looks like. I hadn't seen her before offhand. So I don't know what
Anyways,
her name was.
the rumor I was talking about, it's still very much a rumor, but one of the reliable websites reported on it, so it's got to be somewhat reliable. Now they're going to make an X-Men movie before any of this Secret Wars takes off.
Before Fantastic Four 2?
Well, I don't know if it'll be before Fantastic Four. Like we were still trying to figure out if Fantastic Four is going to be before Secret Wars.
It's
But if it
definitely
fits,
before Secret Wars.
that's what I think too. Yeah. So this would be the same idea. Like you want to introduce some of these X-Men characters before Secret Wars takes off, and not just in Deadpool, right? Like their own
Right.
movie, and not an animated movie. This was supposed to be a live-action X-Men movie.
See, Loki season 2 would be a great time to bring in like an X-Men character. You're visiting all different timelines. With the incursions, you might be doing different universes, however that works, unless timelines and universes collide. I don't understand the science for that. But this would be a great time to like show an X-Men, even if it was one that wasn't quite as common or whatever, just to give the idea to slowly like introduce it. It would be amazing. I think this would be a great opportunity.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that'd be a great time to see it. I'm just wondering, do they still have the Minutemen with those little time charges? Do we see those in the previews? Them resetting a timeline or anything like that? Because what if that's something that Kang came up with later?
Offhand, I don't remember seeing it. That does not mean it's not there. I watched the first trailer more than once. There was a second trailer that dropped, right? More than just like a teaser.
Yeah, I mean there wasn't too much more of it. There's Loki and Sylvie hold hands and send out a green blasts. Wearing green for Loki, by the way.
Oh, I wear Super
Represent.
Mario's. It's got Luigi on it, so that's green.
Counts.
Counts. Totally counts. I was trying to think back to the trailer. No, I don't remember seeing that offhand. Which wouldn't really make well, it depends if the TVA is active. Or if they're zapping timelines.
Well, there's got to be some type of a TVA because Loki's in it, but we don't know what they're doing. So my question is, do they have those timeline charges to be able to just disintegrate a new timeline, or is this before they came upon that? I don't know. Like maybe that was newer tech, and this was still the point where Kang the Conqueror was literally having to go and kill physically other timelines.
He hadn't come up with a zapper charger to get rid of everything yet.
Yeah.
He's smart, but it takes some time. Thinking back to the trailer, something we haven't really talked about is the time slipping. Do you think like when they're time slipping, they're slipping away into nothing, or they're just literally slipping to just another timeline or place?
It seems like Loki is slipping in and out of different timelines. So I think it's the same consciousness of Loki getting pulled, blah, blah, blah.
Do you think it only happens in the TVA, or do you think it would happen if he's like just on Earth? Because when we were seeing it, he was just always in a different place in the TVA.
No, they've got one of him like showing up in front of
Oh shit, that's right.
the yeah the
Jet ski, the
place,
jet ski.
and he goes,
Lot.
and then he does his long hair flip back, which I could actually do, by the way. But no. He
I was
does
gonna
his
say
long
you
hair
should
flip
do
back.
it for example.
You ready? I'm gonna do it.
That was perfect. Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Did I nail it?
You nailed it. It was good. Yeah.
Good. Now I
Besides
gotta
the fact that
replace
Loki
my
has like
headphones.
black hair, it was about right. That guy has got to have like whiplash after years of doing that, especially when you watch the video where they just compact all the hair flips in a row.
There's
You're
like
thinking,
there's like
man.
12 falls of him just falling on his face, and then
Yeah, it gets like such an easy trait to keep the character within the character in like any scene. Just do the hair flip and you're like, you nailed the character.
they probably start the scene that way, right? With all the hair in his face, and it's like, okay, give me a second to get into character. Okay. Yeah. I have been falling for 30 minutes.
In the TVA, it could be like forever if you were falling.
Could be even longer.
The last thing I really want to see. There's one last thing I really want to see in this series. I think it would just be fun. I want them to go back into the timeline, and maybe they will with like Victor Timely. I want them to go back to a major historical event. It could be something like the 9/11 attack, or maybe the man lands on the moon, or whatever it is. I want them to go back to a major event and like maybe there's a like he remains kept someone alive or let someone die to keep a certain aspect from happening, or maybe another king from coming out of it. And so now that there's no one there to keep the timeline cropped, something dramatic might happen. I don't know. I think that I want him to just pick a really like something you could watch, be like, oh, I know that. Like time in history.
Got it. Although I think somebody else has already mentioned this. But what if the Zaniac character is like Jack the Ripper?
Remind me who Zaniac is. The name's obviously.
So Zaniac is they're going into they're all dressed in tuxes going into the movie for this Zaniac movie character. And he's the actor, but Zaniac is also a Thor villain in the comics, and he like draws his power from the dark dimension and gets like possessed by the dark dimension. So it'd be cool Halloween time to have like a Jack the Ripper character, and they're going in trying to solve that.
And we saw him in the trailer. Zaniac.
We saw the movie that they're going to, the premiere for Zaniac, and we see an actor, and we don't know what he's supposed to play. So the rumor is that he's going to be the actor for that, but I think it'd be fun for there to be a Jack the Ripper. So Jack the Ripper, for anybody who doesn't know, is still an unsolved mass murder event in London. This guy got away with killing all these people. Very creepy, but
wait, Jack the Ripper was actually like based off a true like event.
Oh yeah, that was a real.
I never knew that. Thing.
Yeah,
I thought it was more like a story, or like that's just what they kind of called. I don't know, death per se, but they refer to it as a person. I had no idea that was actually a historical thing. Oh wow, okay.
not the Jack-o'-lantern dude, not that guy. We're talking about Jack the Ripper. It was a guy.
Yeah.
It might have not been the 1800s, but it was somewhere around there, and he literally just did his little stream of terror throughout London, cutting up prostitutes and people that were out late at night, drunks. Yeah.
Huh. They ever catch him?
No. They've never. I mean, there's been like supposed people that they think was it that have already died now, but they never like caught someone responsible red-handed. So it's an unsolved thing. I think that'd be kind of fun to tie in.
They should have investigated the local baker. It was probably him.
The baker, huh? You think
Yeah,
it
it's
was the
always the baker.
baker of
You're gonna go dark there. Said the baker of something.
yeah, Butcher of Baker Street is what I was thinking of, but that's not. No,
Is it a horror
that's a
movie?
Johnny Depp movie, I think.
Oh, okay. No, the
Yeah,
name sounded familiar. I just hadn't seen it. Surprise, surprise.
yeah. But no, that's a whole thing.
I'm not gonna like go look that up because now I feel kind of stupid for not knowing it was a real
Go
like
look it
person
up.
thing. They don't tell you that when you're kids. You just hear the saying, or you see people dressed as something that they've called like Jack the Ripper, and you just thought it was like death, but just like as a character or person.
No,
Like
I
if
don't
you were
know that
gonna give it
anybody's
a
ever.
shape.
I don't know that there's a shape of Jack the Ripper. There's like a couple movies based on it, but they never figured out who the guy was. So I mean, he got away with it, more or less, and he killed
It's terrible.
multiple people. So yeah, but it was in London,
That's a
so
happy note.
don't even worry about it. Yeah,
It's true. Sorry, people in London.
London in the 1800s, so he's probably dead by now anyway. Yeah,
Unless it was Kang. It was Kang. See, that's what it is. It was Kang all along.
if it was
So he's still
Kang
around.
or this Zaniac character, then the TVA pulled him out. So now you're safe. Boom. There you go.
Everything's good, except for the TVA is no longer working. So he might come back.
Well,
If
hopefully
time-
Kei Hui Kwan can fix it.
I have one last question because I know we're
Okay.
going we're almost getting close to an hour actually. If time is not maybe no longer in a loop, or however that works, because the TVA was keeping it in a loop, so maybe it isn't in a loop anymore. What happens to the void at the end of time? Or the people that were zapped out of their timelines to the void? Because we talked about, is it possible that Loki just got sent back, like in time?
Yeah.
So is
All
it
right,
possible
so
those people would go back, or are they just stuck in the void for eternity?
I think they're stuck there. I don't think that would have pulled anybody back from the void. But maybe the void, the battlegrounds, you've heard about that for hopefully what's upcoming.
You mean
With
Secret
the
Wars?
Secret
Battle
Wars?
World?
Yeah,
Battle
Battle
World?
World. What'd I say? Battle
Yeah.
Wars? Yeah, Battle
Yeah.
World.
You said Battlefield. I was like, there's
Yes.
lots of battlefields.
Battle World. I think that would be the perfect place to send everybody to do that ultimate fight, right? Because then you're not hurting the other timelines. You're sending everybody out into
If I'm confused
the end
now
of time, technically.
with the
Yeah.
timelines and how that all works, I can't imagine when everyone just randomly gets sent to Battle World, and it's just gonna like blow my mind. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, but so that's already there. That already exists. So them preventing timeline from going into a loop would just mean that continues to exist for all eternity, because then time just flows one direction. So that already exists. That's already here. That always goes
Okay.
until
that makes
hopefully
sense.
the end of Secret Wars. Then maybe
They get out.
do something. Yeah. But that's like, that's the safest place to have just a bunch of superpowered people fight each other. Is at the
Right.
void at the end of time. You wouldn't want them doing that in New York. We've already seen what happens when you have big battles in New York.
Doesn't go well.
Doesn't go well. People get pissed off. A lot of people die.
The
Yeah.
end of like Secret Wars, they're all like big and fighting, and then all of a sudden like this choppers type thing comes in, and the old Loki, like old time Loki that we saw in season 1, stands there and goes, "Your savior is here," just like Loki
Yes.
did in Thor
Yes.
Ragnarok. That would be
And
funny.
then I
That'd
need
be
him
great.
to project a bunch of pizza or food or something for everybody.
Yeah,
Just like
that could work.
yeah. At the end of the Battle of New York, they all go for shawarma. I need him to just project a bunch of food for everybody. Like, all right, you've all fought. Whoever won to the spoil goes the victors. Here's your maybe burgers in honor of Iron Man, because you're right, it was Burger King burgers.
Yes! I knew it was right.
So maybe just a bunch of Whoppers for everybody. And like 20 for Hulk.
Yeah, just a couple more. If you, like one little hamburger's in his hand.
Another!
Like, this is it? You're right. Why the heck was that? It was good. I want another. So do you have any last things before we wrap up this week?
So much. I have no idea who Ke Huy Quan is going to be, the Ouroboros guy. Hopefully he's the one leading the charge on patching the timeline for the moment. Ravonna Renslayer, I want to know if she's going to be a love interest or if she's just going to remain like a independent woman character. What else did I have? Oh, Old Sylvie. Did I say Old Sylvie earlier?
No.
There's rumors of an Old Sylvie, and I would love to see her. So.
I had in my notes thinking about some of Sylvie's past. Would be nice maybe to see if something, but I never thought about more of a future look of her.
So
Both would be cool.
A reason why they trimmed Sylvie from being a female, or at least from that young female part. So maybe because old Sylvie would be a threat to He Who Remains, or Kangs in general. So now that they open up the timeline, there's a old Sylvie out there somewhere.
That's
and an
a
alligator
fair.
Loki. And
That's a fair assessment. Anyone they really pruned and took out must have been a threat to King in some way, or they would have caused to lead to someone else being born or something else happening, and so they weren't really the threat. It was something they were going to do.
Yeah, something he didn't want, or he didn't want them to help. Yeah,
or trigger a reaction.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know anything about that. That would be interesting to see.
But as far as predictions, I have no idea. I'm very excited. I mean, I hope it just picks up immediately from where it left off from season 2. And we get to see Loki bouncing around the TVA, trying to get anybody on his side. I hope that's where it starts.
It would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
I like that. As far as season 2 for me, I have no expectations because we've talked about this. We said Loki doesn't have a rule book. It's not like Captain America where you got like a comic run to really go off of. Loki in general, what they're doing with the series has no rules, no expectations technically that comic readers want to see. So it's kind of being like, I don't know what to expect. I'm just expecting something really, really great. And I really hope I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, like they've just been doing nods to comic runs so far. They had the President Loki variant show up. They had the Alligator Loki show up. Kid Loki.
They get to have fun with the series and pull things out that they want to without having to be like, we have to tell this story.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Any last things?
I'm very excited about it. I want to know about Kang Industries. That's the thing I would like to hear about. So I guess that depends on what they do with Victor Timely, but yeah. Kang Industries was the ones who they had Avengers Tower with Kang on the side, so that Kang would have been the one who bought out Avengers Tower, but maybe He Who Remains prevented that from happening. I don't know.
I'm assuming he would totally prevent that from happening.
That was who I predicted who bought the tower originally. So I would just love for that to actually have happened, or for them to say, yes, I prevented that from happening. No.
See, Loki could appear there and be like, I've been here before. I battled this place. This isn't the guy who lives here. It's Tony Stark. So you could have a scene like that. It would be kind of cool.
That would be awesome. I'd love that. I'd love that. What about you? What do you have a last prediction? Last request?
I think I went over most of my stuff on my list. That's why all my questions that got answered. Yeah, you didn't get a chance to say all yours.
Do you want Sylvie and Loki to get back together? Would you ship them?
I hope they don't become a couple. I kind of hope they become a really good team, but I hope it's not like an actual romantic couple. I don't know. Slightly, it's not like weird. People go, well, it's weird because they're the same person. That's not what I'm saying when I say it's weird. I just think it's cooler if they're just like partners or they work together and they don't have a romantic fling. You don't always need a romantic fling, and I just hope it's not there. I think they both helped each other realize that they can love somebody and they can have that with somebody, but I just hope it's not between them two.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I'm on the board where I think it's weird for someone to
weird.
love themselves. So if we could just get past that, I think it'd be really great to not have to like picture.
Yeah, that'd be a little strange.
Yep.
And ending on that note, that wraps up this week's episode of Marvel Friends After Work. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review our podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to your Spotify or you're tuning in this week. You can find us on our socials. You can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. You can check us out on YouTube and watch our videos there. If you got any theories or topic ideas you would like to hear us talk about, you can hit us up on our emails, which you can find on most of our socials. So next week will be new episode.
Hopefully next week Loki's gonna restart the crazy everybody wants to know what's going on theory train, and I can put my tinfoil hat back on. I'm ready.
Yes. So if you want to see the tinfoil hat, you gotta watch this either on like YouTube or Twitter Live possibly next week. So see you guys then.
Later, alligators, Loki gators.